Why is a barrel of Saudi oil or a microchip from Taiwan priced in US dollars? Why is it that when you buy a coffee in London or a shirt in Tokyo, the backbone of that transaction almost always leads back to an American bank? We tend to treat global finance like a law of nature, as invisible and inevitable as the weather. But money is actually a human invention. It is a piece of technology. It is an artifact. And like any artifact, it was designed to solve a specific human failure. In his study of the evolution of useful things, Henry Petroski argues that form follows failure. The design of a tool doesn't just happen, it is a response to the perceived flaws of the tool that came before it. By 1944, the old financial technology, the classical gold standard, had failed catastrophically. It didn't just crash during the Great Depression. It fueled the trade wars and the economic nationalism that helped burn the world down during World War II. The world was broken and it needed a new operating system. As the philosopher Deleuze noted, humans don't have instincts. Instead, we build institutions. He calls these artificial means of satisfaction, systems which we create to provide what nature cannot. At the Bretton Woods Conference in 1944, delegates from 44 nations sat down to build such an institution. They designed a system where all global currencies would be pegged to the dollar and the dollar alone would be pegged to gold. This created what Deleuze would call an institutional milieu, a stable, predictable environment for the world to trade in. But as Johnathan Flowers explains in his work on orientation devices, technologies are never neutral. They are designed to establish and maintain systems of power and authority. The Bretton Woods system wasn't just a technical fix, it was a political orientation device. It placed the United States at the absolute center of the web. This gave the US what economists call the exorbitant privilege. Because the dollar was the world's reserve, the US could simply print the money the world needed to trade, while every other nation had to work to produce real goods just to earn those same dollars. George Basalla reminds us that it is society that selects which technologies survive and which are discarded. This system was selected because it successfully powered the post-war economic boom in the West. But this selection had deep, uneven consequences. The gears of this machine, the IMF and the World Bank, often forced developing nations in the global south into structural adjustments. This ensured that their economies remained oriented towards exporting raw materials to the north. The orientation device was working perfectly. It maintained the pre-existing power structures of the colonial era under the guise of modern finance. Every technology eventually reaches a limit. By 1971, the US had printed so many dollars to fund the Vietnam War and domestic programs that it could no longer realistically back them with gold. This is when President Richard Nixon famously suspended the gold link.
I have directed Secretary Connally to suspend temporarily the convertibility of the dollar into gold or other reserve assets, except in amounts and conditions determined to be in the interest of monetary stability and in the best interest of the United States.
Effectively breaking the artifact's original design. But here is the Deleuzian twist. Even though the form changed, the institution survived. Human beings had become so habituated to the dollar that the institutional milieu persisted through sheer momentum. We stayed on a dollar standard because the plumbing of the world was already built for it. Today, the dollar has become what Alfred Gell calls a technology of enchantment. We are enchanted by its necessity. We can't imagine a world without it. But this enchantment has a hard edge. The US now uses the dollar as a geopolitical weapon, sanctioning entire countries by cutting them off from this digital orientation device. If you are removed from the dollar system, you're effectively removed from the modern world. As Walter Benjamin told us, we should not view history as a simple string of beads, where one event just follows another. Instead, he tells us to grasp the constellation which our own era has formed with a definite earlier one. We are not just living in the future, we are living in a constellation with 1944. Our modern economy is a living relic of a design choice made 80 years ago. As we look toward digital currencies and the rise of new powers, we have to ask ourselves, is this artifact still useful for the world we want to build, or are we just waiting for the next inevitable failure?